America magazine. It's a Jesuit periodical. And when I picked it up this week, I saw a name that I'm very familiar with. And maybe some of you who were here last year might remember this gentleman's name as well. Paul Philibert. Father Paul Philibert, a Dominican out of Raleigh. And the article is entitled, Lost in Translation. And I actually have to read a few excerpts to you. He says, what is lost in the new Roman Missal for you and who else? Over the past 37 years, English-speaking Catholics became accustomed to hearing a particular translation of the Latin text for the Eucharistic prayer, quote, "Take this, all of you, and drink from it. This is the cup of my blood, the blood of the new and everlasting covenant. It will be shed for you and for all men, so that sins may be forgiven." Unquote. Since 1985, the word men has been omitted, but never the word all. Now, however, as many bishops are mandating liturgy workshops to prepare their clergy to use the new third typical edition of the Roman Missal, formerly referred to as the sacramentary, the thing right on the altar, the book on the altar, priests are being commanded to replace the word all. Among the many infelicities that the New English text, slated to become normative in Advent 2011, holds in store for Catholics is the replacement of the translation of the Latin pro vobis et pro multis that we have known since 1983 as for you and for all, with the newly proposed for you and the many. Coming to the end of the article. This new English translation of the liturgical texts, which some claim to be more accurate and more faithful, is in fact expressed in English that is stilted, verbose, and, as in the present case, theologically inadequate. What is lost especially is the matter of evangelization. The celebration of Mass and Sunday is the most effective vehicle of evangelization for the greatest number of people. In many people's lives, it is the one chance the church has to reach them and to awaken their faith. Do church leaders want to signal that the grace of Christ is available only to the regular, traditional churchgoers? Is their intention to leave out the rest? More and more, it looks as if the covert message beneath the written text is one of effective exclusion rather than antecedent inclusion of all humanity in God's will for salvation. In general, the new missal's language is of no help here. At a conference held in Raleigh last October, the St. Mary of the Lake workshop presenters offered us an example of a supposedly significant improvement in the translation of the Mass for the following collect, December 16th opening prayer. Quote, "Filled with the divine gift, Almighty God, we beg you to grant our desire, that enkindled by your Spirit we may blaze like bright torches before the face of your Christ when he comes." The Latin teacher might well say to the translator, "Come on now, you can do better than that. Who talks like that?" Well, it appears we all will have to in a matter of months, unless ... The article impressed me very much. But what was more impressive to me was, I read this online, by the way, the 46 comments that came from the faithful who read that article. I'm only going to read 3 or 4. 1, so next we will be asked to make a special contribution to purchase new missals that contain all this magic new enlightenment. Which charity will have to go without? The local food shelf? Habitat for Humanity? Pregnancy crisis centers? The victims of the next earthquake? Apparently, there isn't enough of a priest shortage if we have time on our hands to tweak the liturgy like this. Has the institutional church lost its focus? Look around as people pray at Sunday liturgies. We know these prayers by heart, and they have become part of us. Now we'll have to go back to reading instead of praying. Kudos to Father Philibert. How I wish our bishops had the guts of the German bishops. And how wonderful that Father Philibert said it like it should be said. With all the problems facing the church and its people today, years are spent on the minutiae of revising missal words instead of trying to reach out to the faithful, those who stayed and those who strayed. Words, 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 to quote the song from My Fair Lady, are wasted when our church is in such deep trouble with sexual abuse and the Vatican powers would love nothing better than turning the altar around. Pro multis, for all. That's the way Jesus meant it to be said. Rock on, Father Philibert. Last but not least, Jesus wept. Surprised they didn't substantially alter the Lord's Prayer too. Will any of these newly translated prayers bring in more believers? Will they lead to more people understanding, or just slice off another esoteric segment from all the rest? Jesus wept. Why do I share that with you? The second reading. St. Paul had faced the same factions, the same divisions, the same divisiveness going on in the church in its very inception in Corinth. I don't know if that gives me comfort or makes me very sad that since the beginning of the church, there's always been division. There's always been controversy. Well, how about we say wherever there's people, there's always going to be differences of opinion, there's going to be divisions possibly, and there's going to be diversity. The diversity and differences of opinion we can live with. The division we can't. I look back at my own past as a child growing up in a 4-family house with 12 cousins around me, all strong-willed Italians. We couldn't decide together to do anything. What had to happen? We had to bend. We had to negotiate. I look back to 6 years ago when I came here to Elon and moved into Blessed Sacrament Friary. We were 3 friars with strong personalities. 3 friars who came from different traditions. One even came from Poland. We didn't agree. There was divisiveness. It was months, maybe even years, before we came to some harmonious understanding. And what was that brought harmony? It was something that John the Baptist taught us back in the season of Advent. I must decrease. He must increase. Anytime we have divisiveness, it's all about I, right? I want it this way. I choose this. I like this. I want it this way. I. It's an ego problem. My dears, ego is self-centered. Love is other-centered. And that's what we're called to do. When Christ called us, and by our baptismal calling, we are called to follow in the footsteps of Jesus Christ. We are to say, I must decrease. He, Christ, must increase. Or if we want to look at the communities we all belong to, whether it be dorm life, apartment life, family life, friary life, CCM community life, I must decrease. He or she must increase. If we say that we are the image and likeness of God, we see the image and likeness of God in one another. And so we must negotiate. We must die to ourselves. That's what it's like to be a disciple of Christ. Because eventually we're going to die. And find that wonderful kingdom that Christ promised us, that's at hand already. Repenting, as Jesus said, means denying ourselves, dying to ourselves. I decrease, he, Christ, you